Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Tuesday evening. It is 9 o'clock. Time for a live stream. But first, a little music. Enjoy. We are all the heirs to Scotland, as a nation proudly stand. We will march beneath her banners to protect our ancient land. In the glens and cities, there on every street, are the living heroes no army will defeat. Let a flag mean freedom and not a battle drum. To the world we bid a welcome in 1,000 different ways. We will toast to long lost friendships as we build our better days. In the glens and cities, there on every street, are the living heroes no army will defeat. Let our flag mean freedom and not a battle drum. We are all the heroes of Scotland. We're a nation hand in hand. We will march beneath her banners to protect our ancient land. In the glens and cities, there on every street, are the living heroes no army will defeat. Let our flag mean freedom and not a battle drum. Hi folks, having a bit of technical difficulty here, trying to get everything to work. I'm going to bring Alison in straight away, just to make sure that she's with us. Can you give me a sound check, Alison?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, that's great. PBC, I take it you got my email. If you wouldn't mind coming in from a chat when we're ready, I'll put the link into the chat for you. You come in through there, if that's okay with you. Oh dear. I can hear you, Alison.
Right, okay.
My internet is dodgy, says PBC at the moment, but should be okay as we'll use mobile data. Okay. She's going to be on a phone as well. But gee, I love technical difficulties. I don't. I prefer, should I say, technical side of things. go nice and smoothly. Good evening, Treble M. So it's nice to see you all here. So tonight is a bit of a first for the channel, having two ladies on as special guests. So first special guest is my sister Alison, and then a little later PBC will be joining us as my second special guest, and we'll take it from there. So if you would like to give the chat a little information about your good self, Alison, just as a general intro, then we can take it a bit further. Good evening, David. So off you go.
Yeah. So do you want me to talk about my job first and then talk about the volunteering?
No, I'd like you to talk about yourself first. How long you've been in the job, who you work for, and where the money comes from.
Okay. So I work for Inverclyde Community Development Trust. And it was formed about 30 years ago. Basically, when the shipyards left our town, there was two people that was involved in setting up the trust when they realised that they need to reskill people, help people get back into employment. So that was where the trust began. It began very, very small, and then it sort of grew. So I've been in the job for 16 years. And the job that I'm in is befriending, but the trust has got so many more elements to that. My job is only a little bit of it. With my job, we deal with people that have got community care needs, and that is they're receiving services through a package of care, and then found themselves in a situation where they're feeling isolated and lonely. And that can be for many reasons, through people that are old and frail, people that suffered a stroke, mental health, all different reasons that they are referred to us through a care manager. And what we do is we recruit and train volunteers, support them, and match them up with one person. And as a volunteer befriender, you get matched with someone for 6 months, and that can be either visit them at home or go out in the community with them. And it really does make a difference to them, because a lot of the people that are referred in maybe don't have families left, or things have happened in family that they've lost family connections. So through a volunteer, it can help make them feel sort of important again, that someone's taking an interest in them, because they maybe have home help workers, they maybe have psychiatric nurses, all different types of people, but they're there for the physical needs of the person, where there's a befriender's there more for the companionship, the emotional needs of the person. And it really, really does work. And from a volunteer point of view, in our project, we have 25 volunteers. From the youngest volunteer we have is maybe the age of 22, and our oldest volunteer is 81. So we have a spectrum of ages of people that actually volunteer. We've got quite a few volunteers that are retired, and it's good for them because it gives them a sense of purpose. They feel as though they're still giving something back to the community. And we have younger people that are maybe trying to get into care, maybe going to university. They come to us, we help them, we maybe place them with somebody that maybe they think that might be something I might want to do in the future. It could be someone with mental health, or it could be someone that's got a learning difficulty. And we provide references as well. So the project works really, really well. And I've been in the job 15 years. But also part of the trust that we help people get into work. And that is, we help with their CVs. We put them on training courses. People that's maybe got barriers to working, that's what we do. We help them. Maybe mums that's not worked for a long time, we help build their confidence back. We put them on confidence building courses, anything that they want to do. And it's the same with maybe people that's maybe been in prison. We'll work with them. There is no barriers to us. We work with anyone. We also have the pantry, which I've spoke to John many times about, which is a great incentive because obviously there's a cost of living crisis at the moment. So what we do is we take food that would have gone to landfill and we take it, and it's like a shop. So for £2.50, you can get £15 worth of food. So it's not like a food bank, it's a proper shop. You can come into it and you choose the food that you want. And it's a save for £2.50, you can get up to £15 worth of food, and that really, really helps. We have queues of people twice a week coming to our building, and it really does help. And I mean, it's good quality food we get. You know, last week there was fillet steaks. You know, there's toiletries, there's stuff for animals, and it really, really helps people.
Do you get the likes
Because
of things like for babies, nappies and stuff like that?
yeah, we get all of that. We get nappies. We never know. The thing about the pantry is we never know what's going to come in the van. Some weeks are better than others. Last week there was a fantastic delivery. Everybody was happy because there was loads of chicken, there was mince, you know, all loads of meat, and loads of fresh fruit and veg. So everybody had a good shop at the pantry. And if anybody comes to the pantry and they don't have money, they're never turned away. They will always get a shop. So the pantry's situated in my workplace and it's run by volunteers and one worker. And
Is
that
that
works really, really well.
the worker? Is that the person who's in charge of the thing?
Yeah, the worker is like deals with the money, deals with the volunteers, supports the volunteers, and so kind of
Uh,
coordinates it.
uh,
Um, but it's mostly volunteers that actually work in the pantry, and it's been good for a lot of volunteers that maybe don't have the confidence for work, but they come and they do a stint at the pantry, and it helps to build like their confidence up. Um, so So you've got the trust, we're doing employability, we're helping people get back into work. We're helping people that are maybe feeling a bit isolated and lonely, that have got community care needs. That's my job. We've got the pantry. We've got a section we take young people that want a trade. So we've got people then they make things and like maybe woodwork. In fact, the stuff that they make is sent abroad. It's so good. They make a lot of Scottish things out of wood, and it's people, boys that's maybe wouldn't be going, maybe not get any qualifications, but we'll take them on, we'll train them up, and the stuff that they produce is just absolutely stunning. Like they make wee bunk beds for dolls, you know, they make like, you know, all sorts of things, loads of things that seemingly Scottish things, I haven't seen it, that are sent abroad. So that's another part of the trust. It's like a workshop, and they
sure.
take people on with support needs. So people that's got learning difficulties, they bring them in as well, support them, and give them a chance of work. So I'm really, really proud of where I work because I just feel it's all about helping people in our community. And the
Sure.
trust, as I said, it's been in operation for about 30 years and it's very, very well respected.
I've got a question here from Treble M. Surprise, surprise.
Ooh.
Alison, who gives the food to the pantry?
So it comes from a place called Fair Share. So it's all the supermarkets. So for instance, Tesco's, Marks and Spencer's, Lidl, all the food that would have went to landfill. It's not like food. It's not out of date because we wouldn't be allowed to sell it. So it's food that it's maybe changed brands. For example, you know, there's a brand. You know, it could be like a jar of something, and they've changed the brand name of it, or they've changed it slightly different. Anything that they don't want, they will give to us. So Marks and Spencers is very good to us. So the stuff I've had from Marks, as you know, Marks is very, very nice. So you come to our pantry and you're going to get quite a lot of things from Marks and Spencer's. So they're probably top donators. Tesco's is another one. Aldi, Lidl, they're all very, very good. And I just wish that every community had a pantry because, as I say, it really, really helps people, because you know what it's like going to the supermarket.
Yeah.
You're not getting anything. You're hardly getting anything for your money.
Well,
But you
I've
come
got
to, yeah.
Right, go ahead. Carry on. Finish off.
No, I'm just saying, you come to our pantry and you will be blown away by the food that we have.
No,
Honestly.
my question was, who pays the person who's overseeing the shop?
So the
Yeah,
council,
the council.
yeah, the council have given us money to volunteer expenses and the coordinator. And also, see if we don't get a good shop, say 1 week it isn't very good, the money that the council give, we'll top it up. So say we're low on, I don't know, tins of beans or whatever, we can top that up. So whatever we're low on, or say we don't get enough stuff in for baby stuff, we can top it up. We'll go to the shop and we will top that up. Because as I say, we never know from week to week what's coming in the van.
Right.
Some weeks are better than others. It's just so that nobody's losing out.
Right. And that's something that goes on all the year round then?
Yeah. So the pantries, this is our second year. So I think there's a pantry in some communities in Scotland. I don't know in England if they have the same concept of the pantry. I know there definitely is one in Glasgow, but I don't know if anybody in the chat has heard of the pantry or have similar sort of concepts that we've got, like a pantry. It'd be interesting to know if there is anything like that.
Well, if anybody in the chat does know, I'm sure they'll soon tell us.
Yeah, because I think it should be in every community, because it is so hard, to live now. Gas and electricity prices are going up, there's less money, and it's like, what do you choose? Do you heat your room, or do you heat or eat? We were getting to that stage last year when our heating bills were going through the roof. Some people were having to make really hard choices and going for food and maybe not heating their house, because things were so grim last year, with the cost of living.
Well, PBC is saying RAMH has something similar in Paisley.
Yeah.
I'm sure she can tell us a bit more about that when she comes on.
Yeah. It's been a godsend. It's quite sad, actually, because our pantry's opened on a Monday and a Friday, and you should see the queue right down the street to come to our pantry. And as I say, nobody's ever, if somebody was to turn up and say, look, I've got no money, what we have is a pay it forward system. So sometimes people will say, put an extra 50 pence in, and that's for somebody that maybe doesn't have £2.50. And it means nobody's going to be turned away. Everybody will get a shop, which is great that we've got the pay it forward sort of system in place.
So how many pantries are there in the town?
Two. One
Two.
One in Port Glasgow and one in Greenock. Yeah.
Right. Is there any? Sorry?
No, there's and I think something like 500 members.
Well,
so you can imagine.
Is there any plans to open a third or a fourth shop?
That they would love to do that, but it's all to do with funding, because obviously there is the rental part of it, but the council, they would have to agree and cover it. But at the moment, it seems to work with the two. The people in Greenock will go to the Greenock one, and the ones in Port Glasgow go to the Port Glasgow one. So it seems to work pretty well. But and both of them in the heart of the community, which is even better. Both of ours are right in the centre of the community, which is what it was meant for.
Right. So tell us about this Brew Buddies.
So Brew Buddies is something that I run every couple of weeks. So when lockdown came, and then our project, nothing was obviously open, and our project stopped immediately. But when the project when lockdown was lifted, there were so many restrictions that we still couldn't get into people's houses. There were so many restrictions that our project couldn't open, and people were phoning up asking when the project was open, and some people were coming in and saying they were feeling a bit lost and lonely. So we decided that we would have our own wee sort of, what my boss called it, brew buddies, and what it is, it's just we come together once a fortnight and we sit and we have cups of tea and chat and cake. And Brew Buddies is a mixed age group as well. Mostly ladies that come. We used to have men, but they sort of dropped off. It's mostly ladies. A mixed age group again. Our youngest is 34 and our oldest is 90. And most of the people that come live alone. And it's a place to come and just meet other people. And it's more successful than I could have imagined, because a lot that the women that come have actually made friends with each other, and now they meet outside Brew Buddies. And we've been to shows, we go for days out. So it was really set up after lockdown when people were just like disconnected, and felt really lonely. And we decided that we would do this. So I run Brew Buddies, and it's one of the in fact, I had one on today, and we're planning on our next day out. We were talking about it today, and they just love it. And we've got a steady amount of people that come, and there's no referral system with that. Anybody can join our Brew Buddies group. It's not like befriending when you've got to have a community care need. This one's completely different. You can just come along, and it really works. And I think it works well because it's not like a knitting group. It's not arts and crafts, because sometimes for that people, it would put them off and they'd say, well, I can't knit or I can't do arts and crafts. It's the most simplest concept. We just sit and we chat and we have cups of tea, and it works really, really well. So I'm lucky that I can do that as part of my job and absolutely love it.
So where are you thinking of going for your next night out?
Well, the day out's going to be Largs. The last time we went to Ayr, but because I've got older ladies, they kind of ran out of steam. So they're saying, could we go somewhere that isn't too far away? And where we go for something to eat is near the bus stop. You'll understand what I'm saying. So I've got to take account that there's older ladies that come, and I have to be mindful of that. So we're going to go to Largs. So we're going end of August. We decided today, but we've been to loads of shows. We've been to the cinema, we've been to shows, and it's great because it's people that wouldn't have anybody to go with. Sure. Which means we've got the group together. We all go together. And as I say, there's some of them that have actually met up with each other out with Brew Buddies. They've became friends. And that was all we wanted to happen, that people could connect with one another. Because that's a big thing. You know that loneliness and isolation is a massive problem.
Oh, huge.
And it's not just everybody thinks it's a problem for old people, but it's a problem for younger people as well. And as I say, we have younger people that do come to Brew Buddies, that don't have any friends, but they've made connections through us.
Yeah. And
it's fantastic. But the thing is, you have to have the confidence to walk through the door, and that's the hardest part. And we've always said that. And sometimes people to walk through that door, and sometimes it's hard for people to admit that they're actually lonely. With their pride, they don't want to say, "Oh, I'm lonely." That's quite a hard thing to actually admit to.
Of course it is.
But I always say, you know what, you've come through this door and you've done really well. And especially the new members that come that don't know the group.
Sure.
We do our best to make them feel welcome. And when they come back, we think, well, we've made a success at that they want to come back,
Absolutely, because that is the difficult part, to make that first initial contact. Because as you say, none of us, including myself, would want to admit that I miss company and I need company and I'm looking for company. It's part of our culture, sad to say, to be that independent. It's sort of independence going a wee bit too far, I think. Don't know how you
I
would
know, and it
categorize
is, yeah, I know, and it is, it's a massive problem, loneliness, and you know, and it actually, it kills people. I know it sounds
it.
drastic,
It does. I know it
when
does. Yeah.
but it actually kills people when people don't feel anybody cares about them and they've got no validation to their life. They just give up. And then the illnesses take, and I mean, we realised as well through the project that when people live alone and they don't have anybody, they don't even go for, if they're ill, they don't even bother going for appointments because they don't see the point. And there's nothing worse going for appointments on your own.
Yeah.
You know, going to a hospital appointment, waiting, which is the most, you know, that how nerve
Oh yeah.
wracking that is. You're
Oh yeah.
sitting there in the waiting room and there's nobody with you, or
Yeah.
the doctor's surgery, there's nobody with you. It's the hardest thing. And that's where loneliness comes in. People just give up and say, well, there's no point even going to an appointment, and they
Sure.
give up, you know. And through especially the befriending, there's nothing nicer when somebody's taking an interest, asking you how you are. And sometimes there are people who say, I've got nothing to talk about, but it's amazing the things you find. I'm not
Yeah.
going out anywhere. I'm not doing anything. But you've had
Yeah.
maybe a whole life of stuff that you could talk about, and even talking about Coronation Street or anything that you're
Sure.
interested in, you will find a way of having that conversation.
Can you
Um,
can you expand on that just a little bit? And while you're doing that, what I'll do is I'll put the link in the chat for PBC to join us while you're talking about the uh, the befriending a wee bit more and a wee bit more depth, if you wouldn't mind.
yeah. I
Okay.
mean, through the befriending as well, it's a twofold thing. Not only does it help the person that's getting the service, but the success we've had with volunteers that have come to us and they're maybe not job ready, but they're wanting to increase their confidence, and they come to us, and we've seen people, you know, get jobs through just coming, not just coming to us, but it helps raise their confidence. We've had people coming to us that have changed their jobs. We've had people that's worked in the bank for like 20 years and they come as a volunteer and they say, I can't do this job in the bank anymore. This isn't fulfilling me. I want to get into social care. I want to change my career. Sometimes we feel a bit guilty that we've changed people's way of thinking, because sometimes people are just looking for something
Yeah.
that's more meaningful.
Sure.
And obviously doing befriending is really, really meaningful, and we've changed people's direction, and we go, oh my goodness, I hope this isn't our fault. They said, look, this was the catalyst that made us change, because the job we're doing, we're getting nothing out of it.
Yeah.
And coming and doing befriending and getting matched up with someone, um it's changed our whole way of thinking I could do this as a job. It's kind of putting your toe in the water. Could I do this?
Yeah.
You know, especially if you're matched up with someone with a learning difficulty and you think, how could I do this? And then they find out they actually love it and they go, I could actually do this as a job. And then they see they're changing they go to college, they're chucking their job and going to college, and you know, and we meet them and we go, that was the best thing that, you know, that could ever have done.
Sure.
One of our best relationships was a young girl. She was 19 and she was matched up with a lady who was 90. So it was a young and old coming together. And they had a great befriending relationship because the old lady had been through the war. So she had all her stories to tell to the young girl, but the young girl was at university, so she loved her stories. So it was a
Yeah.
young and old coming together. And it was funny because the two of them made clootie dumpling, but they made it completely different ways. So the young girl made clootie dumpling in the microwave, and of course the old lady made it the way Mum used to make it, in like a pillowcase. But you know, it doesn't always need to be the same age coming together.
No.
It works just as well when two different ages come together. You've got an intergenerational, you know, talking about each other's lives, you know,
Sure.
especially an older person being able to share
Yeah.
all the, you know, the best stories you'll ever hear is the ones out of people's mouths, as you know.
Yeah.
So our oldest person at the moment getting befriending is 101.
Good God.
He lives at home. He lives at home, and
Wow.
his befriender 75. So that could be like his daddy. So he loves it, and this guy plays the organ. So he plays the organ to the befriender. He's still sharp. His mind's still sharp. So he's like that. He's having the time of his life. He's like, I cannot believe this man is still sharp, 101, still living at home, got a befriender about your age, John, and they're having
Wow.
the time. They're having a great time together, you know.
Sure.
And we have people that get out in the community, which is great.
Sure.
Some people, especially mental health's a big one. We get a lot of referrals
Well,
from the
could you just,
community mental health team.
do you want to put that on pause? And I'll bring on PBC.
Okay.
Yes, she comes. Good evening, and how are you?
I'm not too bad. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you fine, thank you. This is my sister Alison. Alison, this is PBC.
Nice to meet you, PBC.
Nice to meet you too. It was nice listening to you. I've never heard Alison speaking before, so it's all new to me. I know John spoke about you quite a bit, so he's proud of his sister.
I hope it makes sense. I mean, I know I've just kind of went straight into this, but it was just trying to explain, you know, sort of what our organisation does, and it's all about helping people. And I'm only a little part of it, which is befriending. And obviously, you've heard of the pantry, PBC. Have you got something similar in Paisley?
Yeah, there's actually, I think it's the RAM-H, which is the Recovery Across Mental Health, that runs it. And
Right.
it's where, I don't know if you're familiar with Paisley, it used to be in the Mother Care, where Mother Care used to be.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And what they do is you pay something like £2.50 a week, and you can go in and pick up to, it's like 15 quid's worth of shopping.
It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same as our pantry. So the concept is exactly the same.
I've never been in it, but obviously it's fairly local. It's only open a couple of days a week, as far as I'm aware. I think it's open a Wednesday and maybe another day. But I think you just turn up and it's just your luck what they've got in stock. So if you're there first, you probably get the best pick of everything that's been put into it. But for 2 or 3 quid to get 15 quid's worth of shopping, if you're on your own, especially, like, that could be most of your week's shopping if you're getting tins of like soup and beans and things like that.
It is. I mean,
why don't you use it then, BBC?
I keep forgetting about it, to be honest.
I'm forgetting about it.
I did actually forget all about it until Alison was speaking there, and then I was actually, while you were talking, I was looking it up to see what it was called, because I have heard other people speaking about it. It's called the RAM-H Restore Pantry, and it says £1 to join and then £2.50 membership every time you shop, and you get between 15 and 20 quid's worth of food. So
yeah.
Well,
seems like a really good
would
idea.
be a good help to you when you've got a couple of kiddies, growing children.
Yeah, it would be. I need to actually go and have a look and see what they've got, because even just getting things like pasta and things like that, like, you spend more than that going to Tesco or Lidl.
I know.
Exactly.
I mean, see, the way I look at it, sometimes just one thing, and I've saved, you know, in fact, they had massive boxes of cornflakes one of the times, and you know how much cornflakes, cereal's very expensive. So even on one item, and that was only one item, you know, that I had saved money on. And plus as well, because I've got a lot of animals, I've got 3 cats and a dog. So quite often there's animal stuff there, and I can pick that up and I'm saving on that. I think it's trying to get through to people that it's not a food bank. Some people will say things like, oh, I'm not going to use it because that's for people that really need it. No, it's not. It's for everybody. It's an actual shop that you choose your food. It's not a food bank. We're trying to get that, that stereotypical thing out of people's mind. In a food bank, they hand you the bag and you don't get to choose. This is a shop and you can choose your food. Plus, you're helping things going to landfill. You're helping your planet as well at the same time. That's the way we try and say to people. But it's slowly getting through to people, because there was this element of shame about, oh no, I can't use the pantry because that's for the really needy. No, it's not. It's for anybody. And we're managing to break through that. Yeah. I mean, our pantry, we are so lucky. We do a lot of stuff from Marks and Spencer's, a lot of stuff. And it's the best in Marks. So you've kind of want to watch just having all this stuff from Marks, all their cold meat, their ready meals. I mean, it's unreal. One time, I think they had duck and the stuff that you like, John. I'm like, this is unbelievable, this stuff. It just depends. Sometimes people will come and they'll go, okay, pantry wasn't very good today. But as I say, from week to week, we never know what's coming, because it's up to the supermarkets that donate it. Some weeks are better than others, but it's an absolutely brilliant concept for people that's really, struggling with money. And it really, really helps. It really, really does.
The likes of your place, PBC, what you could do if you're a mind to do it is simply let your neighbours and whatnot know about this place. If they don't know about it, get the usage up.
Yeah, it's definitely something that
it needs to be used.
And I think it's local as well. There's not in Paisley, all the shops that used to sell like fresh stuff, they've all shut down. So you've only really got an Iceland and a Farm Foods. There's no anywhere that sells. There's no supermarket in the town centre anymore. There used to be a co-op. Before that was Safeway and Summerfield, and that's all gone. So you've only really got Iceland, and they've got limited. And it's like Paisley's the biggest town in Scotland, and it's not got a supermarket within 5 minutes of walking distance. So all the old people have got to go either Renfrew Road, where the Marks and Spencers and Lidl is, or away further out to one of these sort of further away. I think the nearest one's Morrison's at Lone End. That's the closest to the town centre, but even that's a bit of a trek if you're older and you've got bags to carry.
Yeah, you might not keep all that well either. Yeah. So you're right. That sounds grim. When I first went to Paisley to live, it was 1972, and it was a brilliant place. I thought it was a brilliant town to live in. Bustling, shops everywhere. Amazing.
There's not even a shoe shop in the town now.
Oh God.
Same as Greenock.
It's bad here.
They used to have one of these shoe zones that sells like pairs of shoes at like a $5. They don't even have that closed down. So
I know it's exactly the same. PBC here, exactly the same.
80,000 people that can't buy shoes, and even when you go to Braehead or Silverburn, a lot of the shops now aren't even stocking anything. So you're struggling to buy things actually in the shops.
Yeah.
And you're having to buy online, and then if it doesn't fit, having the hassle of taking it all back. So
I know.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
It's a shame.
I know, but the only thing I would say about our pantry, we get sacks of potatoes coming in. The old-fashioned way, like they come in as sacks, and the fruit and like the veg that we get. I mean, loads and loads of fruit comes to our pantry. Really, really good. Well, there was big like watermelons actually 2 weeks ago that came in. People were going mad for it. So it is really good for the fruit and veg part. So see, even if you just came and just bought fruit and veg from the pantry, you've still want to watch. You've still saved money, because fruit is so expensive to buy. You know what it's like if you go abroad. The fruit's so much nicer and bigger, and cheaper. Here it's so expensive to buy fruit. But but we do get an abundance. We're very lucky with the pantry here that we get a lot of fruit and veg.
Absolutely. So tell me, PBC, how did your demonstration go?
Well, I went along, spoke to a lot of people. There wasn't that many young people there. It was all sort of older people. They're late 50s, early 60s, which I know isn't old, but it's older than me. And obviously it was a work day, so a lot of people might have been at work, not been able to attend it. But the guy, what's his name, Ian Nicholson, I think it is, who's the leader of the council, he said that he was refusing to engage with this guy, Desmond Barr, who runs, it's the Friend of Hawkhead Cemetery, which is the group. They go in and they tidy up the cemetery, they paint like the benches, they'll tidy up gates and pull weeds, report anything, maybe like potholes or anything that's needing attended to by the council, or they'll fix it themselves if it's something minor. So they'd been engaging with the council about the fact that they were tipping over the headstones, and then they'd started this campaign, which I made a wee video, I don't even know how long ago, months ago now, talking about the headstones, because I'd went up to visit my dad's grave. Now, my dad died when I was 20. It's the only thing I've got of my dad is a headstone.
Yeah.
I've not had him most of my life, so for me that's somewhere to go to think about my dad. And if you go up there and the surroundings that he's in, his grave luckily has not been touched. However, there's no any rows where there's none of the graves that have been left alone. Yeah. It's all around you. Everywhere you look, there's graves that's tipped over. And I could be selfish and say, well, it's not affecting me, I'm not going to bother about it, but it was bothering me, so I made the wee video and obviously told people what was going on. And then I found out that there was this wee community of people dealing with it, so I went along on Father's Day and I bumped into the guy who was running it, and I told him that I would be there on the Thursday. And I think a lot of people say they're going to turn up to these events and they never show. I said, no, I'll definitely be there, because I gave you my word, I'll come along. So when I went along, the council had refused to take the petition off him. They refused to engage any emails with the guy. Now, they said he's running a group dealing with a community matter, so he would be in frequent contact with the council as part of that group.
Yeah.
And they said that he was pestering them, more or less, 57 times in the space of a year. To me, isn't pestering. That's just reporting back weekly, at least, or maybe twice a week if there's a certain thing needs attention, or chasing things up if it's been neglected. So they basically said no, they weren't going to engage with this guy any further, and then they refused to come out and get the petition. So the papers came, the local paper was there, and that's another thing, like I'll talk about that in a wee minute, but a couple of the local papers, Radio Clyde came along, trying to think who else was there, the local photographers that show up to everything, they were there to put pictures on Facebook and whatever.
Great.
And I ended up speaking to one of the journalists that was there. They were all sympathetic to the cause, that the council should not be doing this, and that there's other ways that they could deal with headstones, and that they didn't think there was 1,200 gravestones in one cemetery that needed to be tipped. So public opinion is in favour of not tipping these headstones. However, when they put the paper, I think it came out on a Friday, they put in the Paisley Express, front page was a picture and obviously what the campaign was about. And then right underneath it, Paisley Express, their advert of choice was Hawkhead Memorials, right across through the gate where they're selling headstones, when they're leading articles about headstones being destroyed. So they could have had a bit of decorum and just like put that in Monday's paper or something, but the fact that they seized the opportunity to put it in, a wee bit of a bad taste, in my opinion. But I think what I was saying to the guy that runs it, they have these big, massive banners with like blown up pictures of the gravestones tipped over. And I said, what you need to do is take that into the town centre and engage with people walking past and ask them, who do you think's tipped these gravestones? Because most people looking at that walk in there thinking, bloody hell, the kids have come in here and they've wrecked the place. But when they find
Well,
out that it's
that's
the
it.
council,
Yeah. No,
they're
you're
more
right.
likely to be enraged about it.
Yeah. Most people just naturally assume it's teenagers on drugs or drunk and they're just causing bother. That's the assumption normally. So you're right.
And the
But
fact is,
that's
most people don't go near. They don't go up to the cemetery unless somebody's just recently died,
yeah,
or they're marking an anniversary. Most people don't go there weekly or even monthly, so it's maybe once a year. They might
yeah,
not have seen how bad it's got, or maybe they've not been for a couple of years because they live out of town. But
yeah,
even one of the women I was speaking to, and I've made this point before, like you could be relying on somebody else's gravestone to mark where your loved one's buried because you might not have a stone. So you may be looking for markers on the same row, and
yeah,
you know how many graves along that plot the person you're looking for is buried. If that's all gone, people don't know where they're going, and that
yeah,
might not be the council's problem. But these people have paid for these plots; they're not cheap, and they make 262 quid every time this has to be done. Plus, they're only using approved masons, so you have to go through approved masons to get the work done. And I know you were speaking about this last week when you were talking about getting stuff added to stones and the
yeah,
cost that the council's adding on to like grieving. It's a tax on the grieving, and they've just looked at a big massive hole in their coffers and went, where can we generate money from the
yeah,
dead? They're not generating
absolutely.
anything for us, but now we can get money for them. We can tax their relatives.
Yeah. And they don't find well that when you have lost somebody and you're preparing graves for burial and all the rest of it, that everyone is in a deep state of mourning and they are not in a frame of mind that they're capable of challenging any of this or even questioning any of this. So they just put their hand in their pocket and they pay the bill. That's the other thing that I object to because I certainly didn't know anything about it, and I'm usually uh, kept informed one way or the other about anything that the local council's up to in regards things like that. So I would have heard something, but as I said, I knew nothing about it until my mother got the idea into her head that she wanted to renew my father's stone, and that's how I knew about it in advance. And of course, I did my best to make it an issue, but I didn't get elected, so that didn't help. But yeah, the people in the town need to make an issue of this to show councillors that they're not getting away with these fly by night policies where they just quietly pass a resolution and off they go collecting money. Because I tell you, if it was as it has turned out to be, it wasn't just Greenock here, it was done in Paisley, then you can be damn sure it's all across Scotland and perhaps all across the UK.
Well, Cheryl Cole, the singer from Girls Aloud, there was an
Uh-huh.
article in the paper maybe about 2 months ago. So she's from, trying to think what region that is. It's obviously Newcastle area. Her grandparents' grave had been affected by this. So it's spreading. If it's not happening in your local cemetery yet, then it will be at some point because councils have went, you can make money for this. And if there was 1,200 graves in one cemetery that they've toppled and everybody paid the £262, that's about 300 odd £1,000 that they weren't getting
Yeah. Yeah.
in revenue previously.
Exactly. Plus the fact that you have to get a new stone and a new a mason and all the rest of it. So it's making people poorer in a certainly in a way that is very unusual to say the least, in a way that's I just think it's insidious and it's diabolical. And these councillors should be roasted for doing such things through the newspapers.
Well, they let us into the meeting because they didn't want to come and collect the petition. So the guy that was running it, everybody said, right, we'll go in and hand it in at the reception. So we went into Renfrewshire House, which is where they obviously have the council, and nobody was coming down to meet us. So we were all standing just talking amongst ourselves. Now, to get an appointment to see the council, you have to phone up and pre-book it. Since COVID, you can't just go in. You used to be able to go in, just take a ticket, and you'd wait like when you're in the job centre or some of these places. You could take a ticket and wait in a line. You don't do that anymore. It's got to be pre-arranged. So there was nobody there. There's no members of staff, and this guy comes down, starts getting cheeky to people who were just standing peacefully, minding their own business, waiting for this petition to be handed over. And he said, "Yous are disturbing people, yous could take it outside." So he was reminded that he's a public servant, he works for us and we pay his wages, and that we're also customers of the Renfrewshire House, and we were there waiting for somebody in the council to come down and take this. So I went and took pictures of the waiting area, which used to be full of chairs, used to be full of people that would be in, want to pay their council tax, want to register a birth or a death, or speak to somebody about whatever matter that council related. Not a soul in this area, not even anybody working. All the blinds that were in the previous wee sort of sections, the wee booths, everything was closed to the public, and they're saying that we're causing a disturbance. Now, there was nobody there. So we stood for about maybe another 10 minutes, and then the guy came and said we could go into the meeting, like the actual minute, the council meeting, where the councillors were all sitting discussing stuff.
Wow.
So what I found in there, because I went up because I'm nosy and I wanted to go and have a listen, they were sitting discussing the agenda, which one of the items they mentioned at that was, and this person was actually running as an MP for Renfrewshire, I think it's Renfrewshire South. She said they don't want the far right or members of the far right to be getting involved in community politics with community councils. So basically the council, who are elected by us, want people who run maybe local neighbourhood groups dealing with things like not enough bins in the area or gardens that are overrun and the council needs to come and sort them. They want to be able to police who's allowed to represent their community based on their political leanings. Now, nowadays, if you vote Tory, they're saying that you're far right. If you vote for Scottish Family Party, you're far right. If you have any opinion that isn't basically about allowing the most extreme things in society to be allowed to occur, then you're far right, according to modern perspectives politically. So these people are sat there getting paid our money to tell us that in our own communities, if the community members have said, right, so-and-so is a good speaker and they're good at pushing for change in the community, they're a good organiser or whatever, that person's now no longer allowed to stand because we'll just tar them as far right because their views don't match what the council views match. Now, this is quite frightening because they were actually talking at the meeting about referring people in these community groups to like the ombudsman, which you would report your councillor or your MP to if they were like misappropriating funds or they were not turning up to meetings and whatever. You can report them. They wanted to have a way of policing who basically holds councillors to account at community groups.
And was this just the one councillor that was talking this way?
No, it'd been proposed by, I think it was 2 Labour councillors, but this was an SNP councillor who had then piped in and said, well, we can't let the far right get any say in local politics. So why not?
Well, my answer to that is you get the name of the 2 Labour councillors and the name of the SNP councillor and you report them.
Yep. And the fact is,
sorry, man, there you go.
They film these community meetings, the council meetings. So it hadn't went up live. I was looking to see if I could find the clip. I was going to share the clip of them saying this.
Yeah.
Because that's an important thing. If you're in a town and you've got people, there's sometimes people who are better at pushing for things.
Yeah,
Fergusley Park and
absolutely.
Paisley's notorious for being a bad area. However, they are good at getting things for their community because they've got people who can organise, they can petition the council, they can get money from places, they know where to look for it, and they know what sort of strings to pull to get things for their community. So they're good at organising, but then if they happen to vote for the wrong political party, or they've got views that don't match, for example, all the houses in Fergusley Park that were previously sitting empty, and they had sat empty for years. This was another thing that got brought up at the meeting. They were talking about empty properties and taxing people double council tax and sequestering properties that have been lying empty. So these council people who think they're doing us a good turn had promised some of these houses that were lying empty to migrants, so they would give them to migrants but not the local community who maybe need them for their kids or for expanding families. They wouldn't do these houses up. They would rather see them go to ruin. But as soon as migrants or refugees are mentioned, oh, they've got a magic money tree, they could pull the money out of thin air, and then anybody in that community that then complained that they've been on a waiting list would be tarred as far right. So this far right thing, you don't have to be a member of PA or the BNP or any other sort of party.
It's just a label. It's a label that's just attached to people. That's all.
If you've got unpopular opinions nowadays, you're far right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just a label that stick on to people. Whether it's true or not makes no difference. But whether it's true or not doesn't make a difference. What surely is important, if they really cared about what they're supposed to care about, is getting things done for the community. And that's what matters, as far as I'm concerned. And I know, and I'm sure you would agree with me here, that that's what the public are interested in. Who's going to get me a plumber to fix my leaky tap or whatever it is they're being fixed? That's all they're concerned about. Doesn't matter to them whether somebody's calling you a right winger or a left winger or a double winger. And this is just a new form of intimidation, this labelling of people into bogeymen. Well, it only works if you regard the right wing as bogeymen. I personally don't. I think we've got more to fear from the far left, because they're the ones that are in power. Chicken winger. That's a good one. Chicken winger. What do you think about that lot then, Alison?
It's a bit actually frightening to think that they're filming, like it's like blackmail. You're not allowed to say this, and you're going to, I mean, it just doesn't bear thinking about that this is actually happening.
Yeah, I know.
I know we've got the election, and this is terrible. I don't even know who I'm going to vote for on Thursday. There's nobody that I think's worthy. Do you know what I mean?
No, there isn't.
I've never been in this position, and I will vote. I just don't even know who I'm voting for because I wouldn't waste it. Yeah. But it's absolutely terrible, the situation politically that we're in. There is nobody that I had faith in at all. And I think from the past, because we've came from a working class family, it was always Labour, and that was ingrained into us, But when you look at Keir Starmer, I mean, I don't mean anything by it, but, I don't have a lot of knowledge about politics, but he seems too posh to be Labour. Do you know what I mean? It's like...
Well, he's not. He doesn't come from a working class background. That's certainly true. But I can tell you that as far as our mother's concerned, she long ago stopped voting for Labour after I had filled her in about certain things that she did not know about. Now, it wasn't a question that I was trying to propagandise her. I was just telling her things that was going on, and she made up her mind. But when our voting card came in, I would read out all the candidates, what party they stood for, the broad stroke of their policies, and she would make up her own mind.
Yeah.
And then I would fill it in for her.
I know. It's dreadful.
Of course, it's dreadful.
It's the grimmest I think it's ever been, with the absolute plonkers that we have at the moment.
Absolutely.
You know?
You could take this back to the point where Tony Blair introduced the whole idea of town councillors being paid a salary, because before him it was a job that you did on a voluntary basis. So the people who did that job, whether I like it or not, tended to be self-employed people, small business owners in the town. You know, somebody who would own, say, the Morton Football Club, something like that, and they would give up their time because they could afford to take on a town councillor job. But once it had been opened up to the idea of a salary, that's when it became political parties came in, and the independents. And we had a lot of independents in Scotland. We had a whole history of it.
Yeah.
They slowly went out the window, and I don't know if there's any at all left. It's all party politics, and that's jobs for the boys.
Yeah.
That's why they do what they do, because they're taking orders from above.
I know. It's nothing but scandal you hear. I mean, see, when you think back, and it really angers me when you think of the whole, don't want to go over the whole lockdown situation, but that's where I lost faith, when we couldn't see our mum in a care home. Those old people were locked away. God knows what they went through. And that's just a snippet of what was going on. And the likes of Boris and all them were having all their garden parties, but they were telling us, you can't do this, you can't do that. That, it sickens me so much when I think about it, you know, all the stuff that was happening.
How can you forget her standing in front of that big window, waving us to come in, and not understanding why we couldn't go in?
Yeah.
And these buggers are hoo-haing it outside with their champagne and their salmon sandwiches and all the rest of it.
I know. And I mean, the care home said, let's do like a video call. And I thought, this isn't going to work for us, because Mum couldn't hear it and she couldn't understand it. She's an old lady. She's like, what's going on here? And then they did the window visit. That was horrific. So they said, let's try a window visit with your mum. So that she was at one side of a window and I was at the other.
Yeah.
And she said, why are you not coming in?
Yeah.
And I said, Mum, I'm not allowed. And she couldn't understand it. And I remember her saying there wasn't a virus, which made me laugh, right? And I went, Mum, it's a virus. And she went, what virus? There isn't a virus. And it made me laugh, but I wasn't funny. But then she started crying and she said, I want you to come in. And I said to the girls in the home, there'll be no more window visits.
No.
I can't do that. That is too distressing for my mum. Doesn't understand about the whole thing of what's going on here. And it's unforgivable.
Of
because
course
those old people. And what really upset me was when we did go back in, and I'll never forget, it was Mother's Day. And I think I was the only one that was allowed in. And I said, can I get into Mum's room? And she said, okay. And I went into my mum's room and there wasn't a picture or an ornament. She was in a shell of a room. So when COVID came, they took all my mum's personal things. They took all her ornaments. They took all the pictures off the wall. There was nothing in that room. of anything belonging to her. And I said to the girls, where's my mum's things? And they said, oh, everything was taken out, all the old people's rooms because of the virus. And I said, so my mum basically sat in an eggshell, basically, with nothing in it, which really upset me. So I said, well, can I get some of my mum's pictures back and some of her ornaments? But a lot of it must have been like a rabble. They took all the stuff out everybody's room, and there was stuff we would never get back. There was stuff that had just gone missing. And that was so sad because there wasn't a picture. There was nothing to remind her of us, home, anything. Everything was gone. They took everything out the room. And that's the way they lived for 2 years. And that's why I'm just absolutely disgusted when I heard all the stuff that was going on behind closed doors at Downing Street, all their garden parties, and that's only a snapshot of what was going on. I mean, I know the whole funeral thing was horrific when people lost a loved one and what they went through. I can only talk from our point of view of having a loved one in a care home and how horrible that was. And it was cruel. It was actually cruel what was going on. They couldn't see us. We couldn't, and everything in the room gone. And they had to eat in the room, stay in the room. They weren't allowed to leave the room.
Well, it was solitary confinement.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was.
Of course it was.
And it's just like,
Dreadful.
It was a really dreadful time for everybody. Everybody's got a story about COVID, and that's mine and that's yours. That's the worst one for us.
Yeah.
was our mum in a care home and how it was dealt with. And the other thing was the girls that worked in the care home, if they went sick or took COVID, they didn't get paid. But if you were a nurse and you took COVID, you get your full pay and it didn't get counted as sick. So remember I said to you, I wrote to one of the MPs here.
Yep.
And said, this isn't fair. Why is it if you work in a care home and you take COVID, you don't get paid, and yet if you're a nurse? And he said, don't worry, we're taking it up.
That was
Ronnie, and I think
King.
it eventually got changed. I can't remember, was it Ronnie King? No, it was Stuart McMillan. I think it was Stuart McMillan. And said, don't worry, we're on it. Because it was an absolute outrage at the time.
Yeah.
That those girls that were looking after our parents, if they took COVID, they weren't getting paid. I mean, where was the fairness in that? Their wages were rubbish anyway, and yet they were penalising them again. I thought, this is outrageous.
Yeah.
But it has since been changed. I mean, it should never have been a difference anyway.
No.
But
absolutely.
So from then, I thought, do you know what? They're all corrupt.
Well, they are.
They're just like, is there anybody decent in any of these parties that you would think, I've got faith in you? It's a really difficult one.
If you think of the People's Party, I'm sure you've got confidence in the People's Party.
100%. But there's it's integrity, but it's how many people in politics have got integrity? Very, very few that would actually genuinely care about the people.
Yeah, I know. Very few.
A lot of people are power crazy and they like the idea of it. They don't actually care, and it really is very, I'm not saying they're all like that. I'm sure there are decent people in politics, but I think they're few and far between. I really do.
What do you say about that? What do you say?
When the whole COVID thing happened, my auntie was in the RH up in Paisley. And that was in the March, so I went and seen her just before the first lockdown was announced, and that was the last time I seen her, because she was in there, she kept tripping. She'd COPD, and she'd been diagnosed with a couple other sort of illnesses at the same time. But the COPD was the thing, it was the worst. She was struggling to breathe, so she was in there getting the oxygen and the breathing apparatus.
Sure.
And then they put her on sort of morphine and stuff at home, which she kept falling over. So she had carers coming in, attending to her, and then they decided between the March, when I last seen her, and maybe the end of June, they decided that she couldn't be at home on her own anymore. So she got put into the hospice in Paisley. And we knew at that point that she was on basically end of life care, because they don't put you into the hospice if you're going to recover and you're going to make it.
No.
So we kind of knew that it was palliative care. Nobody was allowed in to see her at that point because they'd cracked down. Nobody was allowed access to see her. Our daughter lived in New Zealand, and that was one of the strictest places to leave during the lockdowns. She had to get special permission for the government to be able to fly back. She only got allowed to fly when her mum was told that she was dying. So they told us that she had 3 days left to live, which it's always 3 days because they were often these people. And that was just as the kids were going back to school that year. So that would have been about start of August. And they were only allowing 2 people at a time at that point to go and visit. So my aunties had gone up. I was supposed to go on the Wednesday, but she was dead. So I never ever got to see her again. And then when our daughter came back, so our daughter had missed her mum passing. She was in Hong Kong flying back at this point, trying to get flights. She'd got as far as Hong Kong when our mum had passed away. They wouldn't let us put the seats next to each other in the auditorium and the
That's right.
What do you call it? The crematorium up at Woodside.
Yeah, I know.
They had to be 6 feet apart. There was only 20 people allowed in. Yeah. And even afterwards, there was nowhere we could book for a cup of tea for people to sit and have a talk. We had to sit in a garden in Fergusley Park because there was nowhere that would accommodate us for a funeral for 20 people. There was only 20 people there because that was all that was allowed. They couldn't have had 5 tables of 4. They wouldn't let that amount of people in anywhere. So we had to sit in a garden, and it was spitting a rain and it was freezing. And that's what we had to do. And her daughter's family couldn't come back because only one of them was allowed to come back. So her funeral had to be broadcast via a link online to her son and daughter and her husband back in New Zealand. So it was just inhumane.
Yeah.
And even in the crematorium, they weren't letting people hug. Like normally at the end of, you'll obviously have been to a crematorium recently with your own sad loss. Yeah. Normally the family stand outside and they shake hands of all the people that's come to pay their respects. People weren't even doing that. They weren't allowing people to do that.
Yeah.
Within the building. You could do it outside, so people were outside doing it.
Well, when it was my mother's funeral, they wouldn't even let us take the corpse and drop the coffin into the grave. They wouldn't even allow us to do that. And yet the corpse are let go and dropped into the grave after the coffin hits the ground at the bottom. I couldn't believe it.
It was just a power thing.
That's
all of this was about disempowering the people and making people feel isolated.
Yep.
And when they stopped pubs and they stopped people meeting up, it was to stop people discussing how unnatural this entire thing was and questioning it all.
Absolutely.
It's just, and the fact that people nowadays have sort of went, oh well, it's finished. They're now trying to roll in the bird flu thing. They're trying to start the next one off because they're desperate to regain that power that they had over people's lives.
Well, I don't think it will be as successful it was as the first time round because a lot of people have had their eyes opened a little bit. I know there are still people wearing masks, but my son was blackmailed into it. He thought if he took that jag, he could get to see his gran, and he never got to see her. So he never took any more, thankfully. And if it hadn't been for that blackmail, he wouldn't have taken the first one. I know that for a fact, because we talked about it long and hard in this house. And that's why he took it, because he really thought he would get in to see his gran one last time. And it never happened. And I think a lot more people have
held us to ransom.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, and they expect us to forget and forgive about it. Well, I'll never forgive and forget because it was the start of Laura's downfall. She wasn't too
I don't know
bad.
if you've ever heard. I don't know if you've ever heard Pastor O'Malley speaking. Yeah. He's from Elderslie. He's a Paisley guy, but his church is in Elderslie, and he'd spoke at a lot of these COVID rallies, anti-lockdown demonstrations. And his mother was in a care home, and it was the same thing. He had to visit her through the window. She died in the care home, and he's spoken about that. He was one of the only church leaders who took the government to court for closing churches down during the lockdown, and they won the case. I think there was 27 of them that took the Scottish government to court. And that guy's spoken at many a rally, and he's got opinions that would probably be deemed to be far right nowadays, because he's got stances on abortion and things like that, and LGBT that maybe don't correspond with what SNP and the Greens are pushing. But I like him. I know that there's parts of what he talks about that I don't agree with, but then there's never going to be somebody that you completely agree with.
Well, you haven't.
Whatever he's speaking about, he speaks for the heart.
Yeah. I'll say, you say that because you've never read our programme. If you read our programme...
I've glimpsed at it briefly.
Sorry?
I've glimpsed at it briefly. I'll say that much. But
so what do you think? No,
that's what's lacking, is people having the guts to stand up and just tell the truth. People are too busy worrying about tags being attached to them, or worrying that their face is going to be out there and they're going to be like, at what point do you say, right, they've done enough? Like, we're watching videos online of like pride places in like San Francisco where there's absolute degenerate acts going on, and I don't know if anybody's seen the videos. I'm not going to describe them on here, but absolute filth, and people are taking their kids along to watch this stuff, and you're not supposed to say that, like, that's not normal.
Well, I've got to ask you, as a female, what do you make of that behaviour from mothers?
I think there's something far wrong, and I think a lot of it's to do with social media, to be honest. These mums wanting likes on social media, or they're more interested in their phones than their kids when it comes to things like Facebook and Instagram and I don't know what other, TikTok and all this crap. Like, they're sitting there uploading videos for shares, and they don't care. Like, they don't care who's looking at pictures of their kids, so they'll have their kids dressed provocatively. And I've seen pictures of wee girls, 4 and 5, sort of posing like wee Lolita type characters, because the mums think, oh, this is dead sexy. Like, your fucking child, sorry, I'm sorry for swearing, but your child is posing like that, and they don't think that there's going to be some perv out there downloading that and doing whatever it is that they do with these pictures. Don't put your kids' pictures online, and definitely don't have them online posing in that fashion and thinking that it's all just fun, because, and then they've got their sons dressing up in dresses because they think it's trendy and it's fashionable, because all these celebrities now, they want to be like celebrities who've got a transgender child, and it's madness. Like, people have lost the plot. Mm-hmm. The things that should matter don't seem to matter, and the things that mean something, they're quite willing to just hand it away. Like, your right to speak up, your right to be able to have opinions that don't match anybody else around about you. You should be entitled to have an opinion that differs to even people in your own household. Your own opinions without being persecuted for them.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I know. I think as well, like, especially through lockdown, there was so many people that they fell out. Families fell out over it. You know, taking the jag, not taking the jag. There was some in workplaces. You know, people have never recovered from falling out over it, because it actually, people's opinions were halved over it, because some people believed it and some people didn't. And I think you're right, PBC, when you speak up. I mean, I'd said something in work I would never take another jag, and I felt as though the whole office just looked at me and went, what are you talking about? You know, are you for real? You know, I felt as though they were ready for eating me up and spitting me out when I said it. So if you say something that's out with the norm, people don't like it. They don't like it. That's why a lot of people, you know, they just keep quiet. They keep their opinions. But it made a lot of people's friendships, people and families. It definitely tore a lot of people apart through all of it, especially through the lockdown, with taking these drags. And we were forced into it because Mum was in a care home. We had no choice.
Well, I didn't.
And there is a silent majority out there. There is a silent majority of people out there who just keep their opinions close to their chest.
Yeah.
And they don't voice them, but they will.
Yeah.
They will voice them if they feel comfortable with the people.
Yeah, and I think in workplaces especially, people are scared. They don't want to lose their job. They don't want it, you know, a mark against them and stuff like that. So they'll silence themselves.
Well, there's Toffee.
And that's wrong as well.
Is saying he's agreed with you, Alison. I've permanently fallen out with members in the family and friends and family members over it. Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah.
That's only one person in the chat, but there's thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, who would agree with all of that. And I know that ever since my boy took the drag, I worry about him. Anytime he says he's not feeling great, I worry about it. Because I never trusted them. As you well know, Alison, Mother never trusted them.
I know, but she had to take it because they told us if my mum didn't take the drags, you'll just need to take her back out of the home.
Yeah.
And Mum needed 24/7 care. So again, we were blackmailed.
Yep.
We were in a situation, we had no choice. I was in no choice. I had to take it or I wouldn't get in to see. Well, I didn't get to see her anyway, but eventually when I did get in to see her, and that was another thing, when I did get to see her, then I had to take a test before I went in. And then when I went back at night, I had to take the same test. And I was only like, my house looked into the home, and I said to the manager, I said, I'm taking 2 tests a day. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going back to the house. And you're making me take another test like 2 hours later. This is ludicrous.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
And she said, I understand, but you have to do it.
Yeah.
So I had to put up with it. So I was going into it like twice taking the test, and I was only going back home.
Yeah, but let me interject here, Alison. You see, because you're not interested in politics, what you're not aware of is I've heard all this before. I was only following orders. That's what it came down to. Those people in the home were saying exactly what they said at Nuremberg. I was only following orders. I was only doing as I was told.
I know. But when I said to the manager, this does not make sense. Surely one test, because when I had to do the test, I had to get in the room, and before I'd even get to see my mum, I had all this waiting time before they would eventually let me go up to the room. Yeah. And then I would go back after tea time. I had the same situation. And I wasn't anywhere. I wasn't in the town. I was just back home, and I had to get in the same room. I had to take the test all over again within a couple hours of each other. And I said to the manager, do you think this makes sense? And she just looked at me. She knew fine well it didn't. I said, fair enough, you want me to take the test, but you make me take 2 tests a day and I'm not even going anywhere. I'd be as well just sitting here and you're asking me to do the same test. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when I did get into Mum's room, they made me wear the mask. Yeah, and then my mum's kept saying, take that mask off. I don't know what you're saying. You know? And then I just took the mask off when they weren't looking anyway. I took the mask off. I thought, stuff them. I took the mask off and I shut the door because my mum couldn't hear me with the mask on.
she got very deaf towards the end. I mean, she really did. Yeah.
And I thought, if I get into trouble, I get into trouble. I'm at the end of my tether with it all. At that point, I was at the end of my tether trying to see my mum, and with the whole rule thing, God love her, she didn't last long after it.
Yeah, and what makes it even more disgusting is that not only were people like me correct, but Dr. Fauci himself has been in front of all sorts of committees admitting that he made all this up out of his head. None of it was based on science. None of it. He just made it up. And guess what's going to happen to him? Nothing. Nothing.
He'll get a promotion if nothing else.
Well, the thing is, PBC he's about to retire, but he's a millionaire, if not a billionaire.
He oversaw the AIDS scandal as well, and he was using kids in children's homes who didn't have anybody looking out for them, who were captive animals, for want of a better word, as guinea pigs to test AZT, which is what was killing the gay people. They said it was the gay community that was suffering most from AIDS in the 80s. It was the drugs that they were giving them that was killing them.
Yeah.
And it was Fauci who was in charge of that. And were these kids, because the whole HIV thing was based in the PCR test as well. So how much of that was just nonsense, fabricated to cause panic? And I can remember, like the soaps, EastEnders and stuff like that were carrying stories about Mark Fowler had HIV, and it was a big scandal, and all these people were sort of, it was made to be a panic, and it was put into the soaps just the same as COVID was, and people were made, my generation of people were made to think about risky sex, like obviously the way they said that you could avoid it was to be using condoms and stuff like that, so which then leads into people having less kids, and a lot of people my age don't really have big families or any kids now, and part of that will be mentally scarring from what they were told was causing this epidemic. So it's frightening that even these things back then can still be stuck in people's heads, and I dread to think what young kids now. I took my kids out of school because of the whole COVID thing. It was to do with the LGBT and all the other crap as well, but I did not want my kids to be held captive in a school where they said that you either can't send them because they need to take a jab, or they can't get out because they've tested positive and they were quarantining the school. These things went through my head, and I thought, there's no way my kids are going to be held ransom. They're just not going back. So I never sent them back.
I think that was a wise thing to do. I really do.
People thought I was an absolute nutter. I remember telling my mum that I was thinking about taking them out, and I was thinking about it for months before I done it.
I'll bet.
Started thinking about it maybe in the January, and then as things kept progressing, because at that point, this was just after the first JAG started getting rolled out, and I remember feeling sick when I heard that the JAG had been released for public use in the December. And at that point, it was only for the over 80s and the over 70s. And I knew they were going to come for the younger people, and I thought, it's going to be me next. And then it was the 50s, the 40s, the 30s, and then it was kids. And there was nobody, pregnant women, there was no group safe from these jabs, even if you had had a previous reaction to another jab. They weren't even giving you a disclaimer from taking these injections. The only thing you could get a disclaimer was if you took a reaction to that jab. So you had to have already taken it, reacted to it, before you could get a dispensation not to take it again. And I thought, no, there's no way I'm taking it. And then the 2021 Holyrood election happened, and Sturgeon got another term, and I thought, no way am I sending my kids back to this, and no way am I having, because she was an absolute dictator when it came to COVID. She wanted to go longer, harder. She had the kids in masks for 2 full years. Kids weren't allowed to congregate outside, even in the playground, even the parents. And I live in a scheme in Paisley, and there's guys in this scheme who've chased pedos that have been housed here in like homeless units. They were stood in the school playground with masks on outdoors to pick their kids up because the headmistress told them they had to wear a mask. I was one of the only parents that was stood there waiting for the headmistress to challenge me. She never did. Without a mask. And these guys are like hard men. They're all hard men. And they're standing there with their COVID masks on. And you think, where has people's spine gone?
I don't know, PBC. I just don't know. I've no idea. I used to see something similar, not at schools, certainly. But you see them in the town, these big, giant guys with their T-shirts and their shorts on. And of course, the wind's howling, it's freezing. They shouldn't be dressed like this, you know? This is big, hard guys, and they're wearing a mask. Does that make any sense?
A lot of times I've seen people, and it would be like Braehead or in the town in Paisley, and it would be the woman without the mask, and the guy would be wearing the mask.
Oh, Christ.
Which, that baffled me.
That doesn't make
that
sense
completely
at all.
baffled me. Like, you'd think it'd be the woman, and a lot of the times you'd see older people cutting about with no mask on, but then young kids, teenagers or early 20s, sitting terrified on buses with masks on, and you think you've probably got the strongest immune system going, unless they've got serious underlying conditions that would maybe hamper them from recovering if they did fall ill. But these people are, in the general sort of population, unlikely to be at any risk of anything happening, even if they got a so-called COVID or flu or any other bloody illness. Like, there's nothing likely to happen to them other than feeling a bit crap for a few days. And they're sitting there terrified, 9 boosters in, 9 boosters, their freedom's gone, all their savings, their business is down the pan, and life's never going to be the same because they're still terrified of this bogeyman called COVID.
Yeah, I know. And the top of all that, it's left people's immune systems not working properly. I'll put it that way.
If you're sitting in a car with an exhaust pipe coming back into the cabin, you're not going to do very well if you've got the engine running. And it's the same if you're wearing a mask. If you're re-inhaling spent air, whether it's carbon dioxide or whatever it is you're re-inhaling, particles of food and God knows what other gases come out, that's not going to be doing you any good. And they've even proven, like, guys with spray paint and folk that smoke and pollen and stuff like that, like the particle exchange between the mask and just environmental things, it's no use. Like, it's just absolute nonsense. It was theatre. It was a theatre prop to make people afraid, and it was a visual reminder that there's something to be afraid of, in my opinion.
Correct. Because I remember quite early on, when Laura and Lorraine used to watch the channel, and Laura reminded everyone that this COVID thing started out, the only way you could get it was by touching something that someone else had touched who had COVID. And then along the way, it suddenly became airborne. And people seem to have forgotten that.
And then it was asymptomatic COVID. So even if you don't have it, you have to act like you've got it. You have to be afraid of other people who might have no symptoms, and they might not know anybody that's ever had a symptom, but you have to be on guard at all times of the bogeyman. Exactly. And it's like, the thing that bothered me was when they started saying that you could have Scotch eggs in a pub and you'd be protected for COVID if you bought a pint of beer and a Scotch egg. That was fine up until the boosters came, but you couldn't go into the local cafe and get a rolling bacon and a cup of tea, because COVID would know what you're eating, and it would come and it would stalk you. It would stalk you.
I know. It's ridiculous.
You wrap that bit of bacon, you wrap that pork and bit of breadcrumbs and stick an egg in the middle, and COVID's going to stay at bay. Like, or you could go into Asda, but you couldn't go into the wee bookshop across the street. It was all about destroying businesses and getting money into the big boys, consolidating business and getting all these wee businesses. My pal lost her business to all this crap. She had a shop in the Royal Mile in Edinburgh and she had to close it down.
Oh dear.
Because
What'd
the
she sell?
footfall just wasn't there. Scottish tourist stuff, sort of
Right,
tartans and swords and all that sort of stuff. But everything she stocked was made in Scotland. She didn't stock stuff that was made in Pakistan or China. It was sourced locally, and it was probably a bit more expensive than the other shops, but it was supporting Scottish industry. And she was one of the last Scottish people on the mile. And she was basically forced out of business because she couldn't support keeping it open because the tourism, they'd stopped tourism, and they were messing about with the finances.
Of course, let us not forget that we're still flying in the foreigners to work in the farms.
Yeah, the fruit farms that we've got kids off school, there's men off work, but we have to get people coming in from like Bulgaria and Romania.
Correct.
In the middle of a crisis where you're supposed to be, and they were still letting people fly home. If that was a true pandemic and there was some airborne virus, you wouldn't be flying planes full of people back in from all over the world every single day, the entire thing. And they never closed the borders once. They never stopped migrants coming in boats. Didn't stop people in planes.
No.
Didn't stop Boris doing what Boris does and dropping his keks every 2 minutes for the latest secretary or whatever. Like, these people were all still doing. Even the guy Neil Ferguson, who was coming up with the fudged numbers, he was dropping his keks for a married woman.
That's right.
At the very start, when it was supposed to be at its most dangerous.
I know. None of it made sense. The rules did not make sense. None of it made sense. It was just awful. An awful time that we never want to repeat. That's for sure. Never want to go through that again.
And I don't know how many people have done any research, but I looked into the Spanish flu. The Spanish flu hit at the end of the First World War, thereabouts. Killed millions of people, I might add. And it was made in America. It was given to the American GIs as they were heading into Europe to fight the Germans. And that's what started it.
Was it Fort Detrick?
I couldn't say for sure. You may well be right, PBC. So you know about that then?
Yeah, I've looked into all this sort of stuff as well.
Good for you.
Obviously, there's stuff online that you can't see on YouTube because
I know
you get strikes, but people should go and look into what happened and the fact that it wasn't old and young people, like really young babies and that were dying. It was healthy, sort of breeding aged people that should have been able to fight off this. And there was talk that these people were jabbed as well, a lot of the men. And what they were talking about with these jabs, with the shedding thing, if anybody's ever looked into the whole shedding, they were saying that that's what these early flu things that the GIs had been jabbed with. It was spreading to the communities that they were in. So whether they get stationed in France or put into a barracks, it was spreading between the people they were in close contact with, rather than an actual illness. But we'll never really know, I don't think, on that one.
No, but it's important. I'm sure you would agree with me. I think it's important that people understand that this has been done before.
And they wore masks back then as well. If you go back and look at a lot of the images, they had the same wee masks.
Yep. My son's saying, sit down, I could take my mask off at work. Standing up, I had to wear it. Work that out.
I remember going into Edinburgh and we went into this restaurant and you had to wear a mask to enter the restaurant. You could sit at the table without a mask on, but if you got up to pee or you got up to leave or to come in, you had to wear a mask. Now, how does that make any sense? If you're at 5 feet tall, it's going to get you, but if you're sat at 3 feet 5 or whatever height seated level is, you're not going to catch COVID. Like, people were putting, this is a bit that I never understood. People were putting their mask on to leave the restaurant. Now, you'd already eaten your meal and you'd paid for your meal. What they're going to do, they're going to throw you out of that restaurant. You were leaving anyway, so why would you be putting a mask on to exit?
I don't know.
It was baffling, like watching the human behaviour. I hated going anywhere during COVID. I hated those yellow signs with the COVID test centres and the jab centres. Like, seeing that driving about the town actually depressed me. I hated, and I still will not go to the lagoon swimming pool because they were a jab centre. I don't know if they're still jabbing people in there, but I've not been in there since this whole thing started.
Sure.
Because to me, that just, I can't go there. I just can't. It's got bad memories of obviously what was going on in there.
Yeah. The other thing that people didn't seem to notice was how quickly all that made-to-measure plastic on the counters suddenly appeared. Didn't take any length of time before the shops had all this made-to-measure plastic in front of them.
Well, they're still up, and now it's body cams.
Yeah.
They've morphed into wearing body cams. A lot of the guys in Lidl, can't remember what the other supermarket I was in the other day. I think it was Tesco. They're wearing shoulder-mounted body cams. What is the need for that? Like, how many times have you ever seen a cashier, other than if somebody's bill's been rang up wrong or they're questioning the price of something? I've never really seen anything kicking off at a till in a supermarket in all the years I've been shopping. So why would there suddenly be a need for them to be wearing them now?
Well, it's a very good question that will never really be fully answered, as you all know too well. I think one of the curses of being the age that I am, I remember when we would hear on BBC News, when that was the only news station, crazy reports from the Soviet Union that seemed like madness to us until it finally all came here. And some of that madness was men could be women and women could be men. Came up a couple of times in the international athletic games. Some people would turn up and they're supposed to be women, but they look more like heavyweight wrestlers. And the idea that if you spoke out of turn, you get put in a lunatic asylum because there were obviously something wrong with you if you didn't agree with the communist viewpoint. And now it's here. And of course, I argue that the reason they get away with so much is because people, the general public, are pretty ignorant and lazy. So they get away with it because people don't know.
People are inherently lazy. They like to be told what to do.
Yeah.
And they don't seem to ask why they're doing it. Like these stupid arrows in the supermarkets as well. You can go up one aisle and down the next. And even I was in Glasgow Central, I think it was on Saturday, and they had this sort of the fencing. They had it all sort of weaving in and out, like they do at festivals and public events, in the middle of Glasgow Central. And I don't even know what the point of it was, but you could walk round it and just go normally through this. So I just walked past it. And when I'm looking at the people walking in and out, like zigzagging in and out this, and you're like, why would you walk through there? Like, there was no point to it. I don't know what the point of these people going through there was even now, but
it's part of your training as a citizen of New World. That's what it
Yeah,
is.
it's like when you see these rats and experiments and they've got like a wee block of cheese, but they've got to get through all these wee sort of mazes and tunnels to get to the end thing, or they could just walk across the top of the thing and get the cheese.
That's too simple. That's too simple. Too easy.
I always
So,
try and drop in if I'm speaking, whether it's like tomorrow I've got some guy coming to fit internet because my internet went totally pear-shaped. I've had a lot of problems with Sky, so I've got new internet getting installed, and I will at some point drop some political stuff in there just to test the
of
waters
course.
and then
Of
see how the guy responds. I like to gauge it on whether they open up or whether they clamp up or whether they start mentioning trigger words like climate change and stuff like that. Like, well, if they believe in that, you're not going to start talking about sort of more in-depth things. But if they're, oh, that's all the shit, or whatever, they start opening up, then you can
Yeah.
gauge what sort of level they're on. But every single person I meet, I usually try and bring something in, even
Sure.
if it's just saying, "Are these skies like you can't get your washing it yet?" They're telling us there's climate change and it's the hottest summer. They're now saying there was an article, not an article, a video. It was doing the rounds yesterday, and it was the Met Office. The Met Office stood there delivering a weather forecast telling us that in July, the average temperature, which they're trying to say has always been 14 degrees. Try to say that 14 degrees is a normal summer temperature for July. And you're like, and she was stood there barefaced lying, and people will just sit and watch it. Yet they pay all this money to fly to like Turkey to sit in 40-degree weather, but they're sitting there with their cold shower and their 20-degree wash cycle, thinking they're saving the planet because it's 14 degrees in Govan.
The weather is bad though, isn't it? I mean, this is
It's
July.
absolutely awful.
I've got the same. I mean, I don't know. I packed away my winter stuff. I feel as though I want to bring it back out again. It's absolutely freezing tonight, and the heating's on. It's ridiculous.
And it's just this constant grey. That grey is so depressing.
I know, grey and rain, and it's a shame because that's schools.
Oh, you see, I never used to accept the idea that human beings have got a certain amount of control over the weather systems, but I do now accept that. And so to see Scotland almost permanently covered in slate grey clouds and drizzling rain is deliberately to psychologically keep you in a state of how could we say, depression. It's done that deliberately. That's why it's done, to keep you,
to make you feel defeated.
Yes, it's to keep you in that state, because all you have to, if you don't believe that, just think about how you feel when it's a nice, bright, sunny, warm day. You feel a lot better. You're a lot cheerier. And it's more difficult to get you out of that state of mind. But if the weather's the other way, well, it keeps people in an unhappy state. And it doesn't even look natural. This constant, uninterrupted, grey slate sky, it doesn't even look like a cloud.
Did you see down in Greenock that explosion that happened in Paisley? Could you see the smoke from down there?
No.
It was like a week ago on Sunday, so whatever date that was. I'd come home, went to the shop, nothing was there, and then my wee boy had said the sky looks weird, so I thought chemtrails or something. So I went out and had a look, and I could see this. It looked like a plane had come down. That's what it looked like. It was like this thick black smoke, but it wasn't moving like smoke. Smoke moves like the wind. You could see it.
Yeah.
This was sort of like lingering, but this just big massive plume. So me and my daughter went out in the car. I'm quite nosy. I wanted to know where this was coming from. So we drove towards it until we found it, and it was out at Linwood. and it was a recycling plant that had gone up, and it was exploding batteries for electric vehicles.
All right.
Oh.
So
It
that
was
smoke,
good. It was destroying it was destroying batteries.
well, the batteries had caught fire and they were exploding
I
in the
see.
factory,
Right.
and it had been burning. I think it'd been burning for quite a while before. But the thing is, we were stood a couple of 100 meters away, and there was no smell of smoke. I've been at big, massive fires where you can smell smoke and you can feel the heat.
Yeah,
There
yeah.
was no heat and there was no smell. And it was only the next day I had an appointment in the town centre the next day, and you could smell this plasticky, like if somebody chucks a toy in a bonfire
Uh-huh.
or plastic bags burning on a bonfire. It was like that kind of smell. You could
Sure.
smell that in the town, but on the night when the fire was at its worst, even a couple of 100 yards away, there was no smell, and the smoke. Like there's videos online. It was quite frightening at first. I thought it was a plane that came down because it was in the vicinity of the airport. But again, that's them pushing electric batteries and electric cars. Yet the
Yeah.
plants are supposed to be dealing with this stuff are going up in fire.
I know. Magic Mara said, grey skies made to order as required. Remember the perfect skies during lockdown. And that's a very good point. Not
Mhm.
at all suspect. Yeah, I remember that.
It was a beautiful summer. That was
It
the
was.
only good thing about
Yeah, you noticed that? It was a
it.
beautiful summer.
It was a beautiful summer. Yeah, it was the only thing that we had. That is, if you had a garden. God help you
Yeah.
if you were up a flat and you didn't have a garden, and because you weren't allowed to go to a park and you weren't allowed to sit on a bench next to anybody. Police would move you. So if I was out with Barney, I couldn't speak to anybody, and I certainly couldn't put my backside on a bench. I was told to move.
They even took all the swings and stuff away for the kids so that they could not even go into. They took the chains and the seat part away from all the local parks here. I don't know if they done that down there, but they chained them up. They had like crime scene tape. It's like crime scene tape outside, and then the actual swings themselves, they'd taken the seat off so that you could not possibly play on it, even if you were the only person in the park.
Oh dear,
It's
awful.
They were even telling people, if you remember, they were telling people at the very beginning not to be going up into the hills, so you couldn't even go hiking in the middle of nowhere because you were going to be spreading COVID, even though there might not be a soul.
That's right.
For
They were
miles,
in with their helicopters and
the drones and God knows what.
That's right.
Shaming people for walking their dog miles
That's
from
right.
anybody, but they were still trying to shame you.
I know, because one of my friends, through lockdown, her friend came to her door. It was her birthday, and gave her a birthday present. Just kind of handed it in, and one of the neighbours reported her, and she got a fine. So she was terrified because she was going for a job, and she said, "Am I going to have a criminal record because my pal came and handed in a birthday present during COVID, and she got a fine because one of the neighbours reported her." And I said, I don't think it's like criminal or anything. But she was terrified that was going to stop her getting a job.
It will be. It will be logged. It'll be
logged somewhere.
Yeah, it will.
She's a criminal.
That's what happened at Ruth's funeral.
That's right. I remember you saying.
Yeah, that some neighbour or other found out that the funeral breakfast was going to take place in the house, and she was reported. And that was, and it had to be, well, fortunately she found somewhere else to have it, but who needs enemies when you've got people like that?
A well-wisher, as I call them.
Well, look, ladies, we're almost on the 2-hour mark, and I try to keep it these days to the 2 hours because of the the health problem, as you know.
Yeah.
So, if you've got any last things you want to say, Alison, please say them now.
No, I just enjoyed being on the chat tonight, and it was good that PBC was on with me. Really, really nice and interesting to have like a wee three-way chat going on tonight, especially for the ladies. It's mostly the guys that John that you have on. Very few times you have the ladies, so it's nice
It's because of very few ladies occupy
on the chat.
on the chat. That's why. And then the ones that are on the chat, most of them won't come on.
I know. Shyness. That's
Shy.
it.
That's what it is. So, you had a good time. You enjoyed it.
Enjoyed it. I definitely did.
And if we can track down Jodie Rotten, we'll do a live stream with the three of you. That would be good. How about you, PBC? Have you got anything you would like to finish off with?
Probably just tell people to keep an eye on their local cemeteries. Even if you've not got somebody buried in there, just keep an eye and see if it's happening near you. Start paying attention to what's going on with these things, because it's the last thing you do for somebody is put them to rest, and you hope when you put them in there that that's going to be somewhere they can get peace. So it's something that bothers me, and also with these new boosters and whatever, just if you can, tell your family members not to be taking any more. But obviously we've all encountered family members that just won't listen. So it's just a case of finding people that you can let off steam to. If there's no point getting angry with them if they've bought into this and they're in the mindset that they're afraid they need it. There's no point falling out with them over it. That time's gone. Like,
Sure.
the time to stop them was many boosters ago. But
I like it.
Obviously, we've all got family that's taking it, and maybe even people in the chat that's taking it. So just don't take any more if you have, and try and be kind to those that have. Obviously, it's not doing them any good, and it's not doing the rest of us any good that they're still pursuing this. But there's not much you can do once people they've got the fear.
Sure.
And then there'll be people out there who have taken these things that are maybe terrified what they've done to themselves.
Yeah.
Especially when they start seeing people with turbo cancers and folk sort of getting all these different illnesses that they've never shown any symptoms of previously. So I think be compassionate, I think, and just keep an eye on the cemeteries.
So we can invite you back with a certain amount of confidence then, PBC.
Yeah, it's lovely speaking to Alison and obviously yourself as well. And if there's any more, and anybody in the chat that's keen, just let John know, and I'm sure he'll be happy to speak to other people, because it's always nice. You see these names in the chat and you want to put not a face to them, but you learn more from somebody's voice than what you learn from their comments.
Absolutely. I think
so.
You're right.
It's nice to hear from people in the chat.
Sure. Okay then, ladies.
DJ's asking for his invite. I can see it at the bottom.
Is he? Oh,
he's wanting to come back on.
I thought you meant he wanted to come back and see me. No. He just wants.
That as well, I think. But I think he's talking about having a gab, because I know that he's obviously got a soft spot for John.
Well, of course, DJ. And again, because you're here, I can say it. Thank you very much for the sympathy card that you sent through. I know that you were sharing it with PBC, but nice to say thank you anyway. And I will definitely have you back on the stream very quickly, and look forward to that. But if you come on, you're coming on without your good lady. I am not encouraging the two of you to come on as a pair. Okay then. Yeah, well, I'll send you an email, DJ, and all you have to do is pick a Tuesday or a Thursday, and we're off to the races, as they say. Okay. Meanwhile, I'll take you good ladies out of the stream, and if you want to hang about, please do so. And as I always say, folks, adios, au revoir, cheerio, and goodbye until Friday evening, same time, and I will see you then. Take care, folks, and thank you, all of you, for being here. It makes all the difference when we have an audience. So take care of yourselves, enjoy the music, and we'll speak soon.
Silently the snow falls, paints a winter scene, swiftly spreads the dark rim, hides a fading autumn green. Moonbeams brush the dark wood, conjure friendships dear to me. Lightly now the breeze flows, disturbing more than just the leaves. But life's much more than we can know. We are one small glow in the eternal flow. Patiently the love grows, lifts the weary heart. Gently now she holds me, melts two worlds once apart. Moonbeams brush the dark wood, usher dreams of you and me. Softly then the breeze blows, disturbing more than just the trees.
All together
But
now,
love's much more
so much more
than we can know.
than we can ever possibly know,
We are one small glow
but an important flow.
in the eternal flow. Melodies of long ago, songs of innocence, harmonies to soothe the soul, past the consequence. Moonbeams brush the dark wood, awakening joys of you and me. Silently the snow falls, bringing winter symphony.
All together now,
But we're much more
so much more
than we can know.
than we can ever possibly know,
We are one small glow
but an important flow.
in the eternal flow. But life's much more than we can know. We are one small glow in the eternal flow.
Okay, folks, you take care, and I'll speak to you all soon. And thanks again for being here. Bye just now.